We're alive. It is the eve of Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, Shabbos Shabbosin, the Sabbath of Sabbaths, the Yom Hagadol, the great day. Such an amazing day that we make a Shechianu. We thank God for the day. We thank God that we can fast. We thank God that we can pray a whole day. Why? Because God gives us an opportunity that we can clean the slate, that we can start anew, not just anew, new and improved, even greater and better than before. That is the ultimate idea of tshuva, of what it means, repentance. So it's the Day of Atonement, and so our connection with God is like a rope. Oops, that has many strands to it. We're connected on high. Down here, our soul is down here in a body, and we're connected up here. But we could, God forbid, do things that sever the connection. But God gives us the opportunity that when you do tshuva, penitence, that you can now tie the rope that connects us and make it stronger than it was originally. We learned a great depth on this in this past Sunday when we had our Yom Kippur symposium. So the more you tie it, the stronger it becomes, the deeper the connection becomes through our failings. So plan A is never fail. But unless you're righteous, we will have failings. Therefore, plan B is to bring us to a stronger place than we would be, that we would not have reached if it were not for our failings. So the descent is ultimately for not just to coming back to the same, to plateau back at the same place, but to come to a greater and higher place. That's what Yom Kippur ultimately is, an opportunity. And therefore we say Shechianu. And therefore we're like angels on that day, angelic, in that we are cleaning the slate, starting anew, new and improved, better than ever. Welcome to Tanya today. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you from Chabad Zurich and Kedoshim in Montreal, Canada, where it's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you the Tanya. We are in the 20th letter of the Igeres HaKodesh, of the holy letters of the Alter Rebbe. As we've mentioned, this is a very difficult, deep, profound teachings that the Alter Rebbe wrote a few days before his passing. And in this, he is giving us a deep understanding how the physical world comes directly from God, and therefore the uniqueness in physical-oriented mitzvahs that we engage in, right? In the physical act of the mitzvah, right, as opposed to the spiritual idea of the mitzvah, is something that we need to engage in. Now, we learn that God created, yesterday we learned about Malchus, royalty, the Hay, the final Hay in God's name is Malchus, the 10th of the 10 divine attributes. Malchus is kingship, royalty. King rules with his word. God creates with his word, right? So we explained that at great length. Hay also in our soul, because we have a piece of God in us, refers to the actions that we take, meaning the actions that we take in mitzvahs. Right? The mitzvahs, they come from the letter Hay in God's name. Right? Mm-hmm. Torah, on the other hand, comes from the letter Vav in God's name. So what do we have over here, though? What comes up is Torah comes before mitzvahs, physical acts of mitzvahs. It precedes it in God's name, means it precedes it in levels of divinity, right? But how does that make sense then? That mitzvahs are the physical act of the mitzvahs is where the presence of God is, vis-a-vis Torah. How do we understand that then? It seems to be the opposite. Shouldn't it be, mitzvahs are higher? Because in the mitzvahs is where you have in the physical act that you have the connection to God himself, right? So Alter Rebbe explains like this. Everything, now, mitzvahs, they come from the letter Vav, they really actually come from the Yud Chachma, the divine wisdom. But divine wisdom is rooted above. You have everything? Yeah, you're good? Huh? Okay. Hmm? Hmm. So everything, the way it is expressed in godliness, right, is rooted in God, right? Or in the interface, where I remember we spoke about Kesser, crown, as being the interface between emanator and emanation was the crown. We spoke about at great length yesterday. So there's an interface of where Torah comes from and mitzvahs come from, that is from a higher level. And on that, Torah, metaphorically, comes from hair.
Oh.
And why hair? Because 613 commandments are 613 paths of hair, so to speak. I mean, we have more than that because mitzvahs themselves are all divided into subcategories of stuff, right? But it's the idea of, right. One second. I'm sorry. I made a mistake. Sorry. The root source of mitzvah of Torah is moichen, brain. Makes sense, right? Intelligence, heavenly intelligence. This is metaphor. Let's take the metaphor of the head of the person, right? Mitzvahs is skull. Okay, and the white in the skull, in particular, the skull. And from the skull comes hair. 613 commandments, action mitzvahs that we have to do, right? So in the root source, what comes out? What's greater? Mitzvahs, because they're the skull that is greater than the brain. Metaphorically, my brain is obviously,
So
more.
what's the brain in this analogy?
Torah.
Okay.
It's Torah.
I thought it was the hair.
No, I made a mistake. I made a mistake. The hair is from the skull, right? Skull is
Around the brain.
is around the brain, meaning it encompasses the brain, more important than the brain.
Okay, yeah.
In the metaphor, obviously in life, the brain is what's most important, right? But in the metaphor, what's greater is the skull because it encompasses the brain. It's higher than the brain. Okay. And from the brain comes the 613 divisions of hair, meaning mitzvahs are divided into 613.
It's easy, but the skull part, difficult.
Well, no.
Making it greater.
It's greater again in the metaphor that it's beyond the brain, encompasses the brain, encompasses the brain. So in that respect, it's greater, right? It doesn't mean it's greater in giving you life, right? Obviously, without a brain, you have nothing. Without Torah, you have nothing. But without us, done. The blue ones you put back up. The blue on the left that are Rosh Hashanah. Okay, amazing. Thank you so much. Right? So again, it's a more of a physical element as far as you're not the functionality. It's not the functionality of the brain is more important, but that's the function of the brain. but in the placement on the hierarchy of the person, the skull is greater than the brain. It encompasses the brain. Mitzvahs are encompassing light of God, whereas Torah is internalized light of God.
Yeah.
That's brain. That's right.
That works very
Right.
well.
Right. So
And the hair
So-
part.
right. So the point being over here, the root source of Torah and mitzvahs is greater than Torah. That's the point.
Mhm.
It's greater because it's skull, which
Okay.
is greater. Again, not greater in functionality. It's greater because it is encompassing the brain. So in that respect, it's greater. Right? Because we always think greater means in function. Doesn't mean in function. Right? That's clear? Yeah?
Yes, yeah.
That's clear? Makes sense?
Yeah.
So now, how do you make sense of that? First, we said Torah is greater because it's the letter Vav in God's name, so it precedes the Hey. But in its root source, it's lower than the mitzvahs, that is the Hey. So the metaphor for this is a stamp,
Mhm.
which one called stamp?
A seal.
A seal, rather, inverted seal, right? That which is protruding in the seal, when you make something, it makes an indentation.
Mhm.
That which is indented is protruded,
Mhm.
right? From the seal,
Yeah.
right? In other words, what you have on the thing is the opposite on the other. So that's a metaphor to give us an appreciation that Torah down here is greater than mitzvahs. And that's why Torah has to teach us the mitzvahs.
Yeah.
But in their root source, mitzvahs are greater. Right? And that is the idea of the beginning is wedged in the culmination. What does that mean in the beginning? Beginning is the kesser, the crown,
Mhm.
right? Is the beginning
Mhm.
that encompasses like the skull. That is the beginning, right? The beginning of the person is the skull when you think about it, right?
Yeah.
That's the
Uh-huh.
beginning.
Yeah.
It's wedged in the end. What's the metaphor? Mitzvahs is wedged in the end. What's the end? A
Mashiach.
physical world. Oh, a physical world. In creation, what's the end? Is a physical world, not a
Yeah.
spiritual world.
The rock.
Physical.
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 Yeah.
Right. What demonstrates physical? Talking, thinking,
No.
action. That demonstrates physical.
Mhm.
You doing an act of a mitzvah represents the physicality of the end of creation.
Yeah.
Where is the end wedged in? The beginning,
Got it.
right?
Mhm.
The beginning, the skull. That encompassing, right?
Mhm.
And it's a metaphor, right?
Yeah.
Is that clear?
Yes.
Yet that's unbelievable to understand that. Furthermore, says the Alter Rebbe, the original, the final act is the original thought, right? The maker of this goblet, this silver goblet, right? What the silversmith who made this silver goblet, right? When he was thinking it originally, what was he thinking? All the steps it would take to do the job? No,
An idea.
no.
He saw the final.
He saw the final product in its first thought. And then all the intermediary processes were for the final product.
Yeah.
That's the same idea here.
Mhm.
The first thought of God is, I want a physical world with physical actions of mitzvahs.
Yeah.
That's the first thought that he had,
Mhm.
right? That's the final deed. Are there steps in between? Yeah.
Yeah.
What were the steps? Well, we explained. There was infinite light of God. He contracted upon it in order to make a kav, a line. That was the source, the source, or the potential for finitude. From there, there was then he has an interface called the crown. That's
Yeah.
beyond. That is beyond. That beyond the emanator. Not beyond it. That it is the interface between the emanator and emanation, which is the world of Atzilus, which is the 10 divine attributes. 10 divine attributes. Each one has of light and vessel to it. Vessel has 30 different components to it, as we explained. All of these are steps of, when you want to build a home, you have envisioned the final product of your home, and then you need the plumber, you need the carpenter, you need the electrician, and all these things are the intermediary steps to get to what you finally want.
Yeah.
So what did finally God want? The act of a physical act in a physical world. That's why he made a physical world, for the physical act that should be here. And therefore, that's why the Talmud tells us that if someone learns Torah, right, with the intention not to practice what they learn, it's better that their afterbirth should have turned over. Mean not to be born.
Yeah.
Sound to every extent, well, just say better not to be born. In other words, the whole point is the action that you're going to do in this world. So you're going to learn and not do. That doesn't make sense, right? Now, this is a theoretical, because people should learn now, even if they're. But if you're doing it and you're planning not to do. Right, that's what we're talking about. Like, I'm going to learn, but I'm not interested in doing any mitzvahs.
Yeah.
Right? That's better that your afterbirth should have turned over. So Alter Rebbe explains why say afterbirth. Just say that it's better you shouldn't have been born. Right? Because the whole purpose is a physical world with physical actions and mitzvahs. So you missed the whole point of the learning if you're not going to do the mitzvahs. Right?
Yeah.
Why the afterbirth? So he explains because afterbirth is the first thing that is born of the child. Before the child is born, there is not the afterbirth, the embryo. The afterbirth is formed first from the seminal drop, and until 40th day, when the embryo begins to take form, it alone was the essential substance of the embryo. So the afterbirth was the first part of the creation of the child, right? So likewise, commandments are the essence and the root of the Torah, even though a commandment is corporeal and the Torah is wisdom and ethereal. Right. So what's the point of Torah then? Because Torah is the inner dimension or the inwardness, where mitzvahs are external. Why are mitzvahs external? Because they're physical acts of doing, right?
Yeah.
Right. Why do you need to study Torah?
So you can do the physical.
So that you will not only do it, but you'll be infused with the doing of the mitzvah, with a vitality to do the mitzvah. Otherwise, you'll do actions of mitzvahs, but they won't be internalized. They won't be meaningful. They won't be with intent. They won't be with a devotion. So that's why you need the Torah to give you that. On this, the way we're explaining here. Other times we'll get different kind. Well, we're not finished yet. We're going to get different explanations. That's today's class. Did you get that?
The way you explained it was actually it was a really good metaphor. I think you had compared to what was written in here in terms of.
Oh yeah. It's very hard looking at it out there. Okay. Amazing, folks. Do we have any questions over here? Any comments? Reminder, there's no Tanya tomorrow or no classes tomorrow because it's Yom Kippur, of course. Wishing everybody sealed for a good and amazing year with only revealed goodness.
Amen.
Rambam coming up for a few moments we'll have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Rabbi.
You're very welcome. God bless.